All right, so today I'm going to talk about how industrial operations affect the River Raisin watershed. This is actually a topic very close to me, as this is the area in which I am from. So I spent my entire life kind of growing up around this watershed and understanding what goes into it and the different ways that it is affected by my community. So the overview is that industrial operations growing along the River Raisin watershed, if they continue to grow, it is going to cause the watershed to deteriorate. The rest of this talk is just what are these watersheds and how are they utilized by my community? What current operations are occurring on this watershed? Its connections to this course and as well as sustainability, and then my references. Um, so what is the River Raisin watershed? This watershed is part of southeastern Michigan. It covers 1,172 square miles, and it empties into Lake Erie, which is a big part of a lot of agricultural things, as this does affect, the Lake Erie algal blooms and things like that. And it is a critical resource of Southeast Michigan. It is utilized very heavily in throughout like agricultural things. It is a main water source for a lot of people as it has a lot of aquifers and groundwater resources available with it as well. Now, its current uses as of 2010, I'm sorry, I could not find a newer resource. This is the most up-to-date one, just as it is kind of slow moving these things along in my county. As of right now, it's agriculturally the biggest thing, which is kind of a shock to me. I thought there would be a lot more industrialization, especially as a lot of these areas have been growing. Specifically in this map, you can see Adrian and Tecumseh. Those areas have been growing a lot more recently, even more so since I have come here for school. Monroe has also historically been a larger town, part of this watershed. It definitely has a lot of output into Lake Erie. There's power plants all along there, things like that. I'm kind of surprised though about how low the urbanized areas were, especially with how fast growing this is. However, our community is a massive agricultural community. A lot of the agriculture is like corn, soybeans, things like that, crop farming, and there is an abundance of dairy farms. There's a lot of those in this as well. I kind of am upset though that there isn't more wetlands, forested, and grasslands. That was one thing that kind of came as a shock as well, is just because even out in these rural areas, so much of it is farmland, and so very little is actually developed and natural. So that was definitely interesting when I was researching this topic. So the current industrial operations is actually little to none. I, again, thought there was going to be a lot more. Come to find out, there really isn't. However, one of the biggest things going on within this area right now is the Irish Hill gravel pit propositions. As of right now, there is an area in the Irish Hills, which is this red circle that you see inside of there is the current proposed site for a new gravel pit. The reason why this is a proposed site is because this area specifically has been formed through glaciation. These glaciers that have receded long, long ago have left behind all these different lakes and things like that. And because of that, aggregate rock is very, very common here and one of the biggest resources for these gravel pit operations. This is occurring in Cambridge Township, Michigan. The little like red pin at the very bottom is actually where my parents live. So this is incredibly close to my house. A lot of the community is strongly opposing this, and they're opposing it due to how close it is to these natural resources. As you see, there's about 3 lakes surrounding this area. And from my observation as well, the area in which they want to propose this gravel pit is actually higher than all of these lakes. So all the runoff from this gravel pit, whatever pollution they produce, is going to be going into these lakes immediately. And these lakes, of course, are fed by the River Raisin, which in turn feeds Lake Erie. So a lot of this is just a snowballing effect of different kinds of pollution caused by these gravel pit companies and them trying to put it inside of these really beautiful areas that have a lot of natural resources, unfortunately. So it's very hard to keep these areas green, and just free from these kinds of things. So there's been a massive community pushback actually against this. There's signs everywhere. There's different meeting boards. The township hall actually has a lot of things trying to help citizens understand what's going on, understand the cause and effect, understand, the pros and cons. Would it be, a great source of business for this area? Yes. However, a lot of these cons kind of outweigh those pros, unfortunately. So it's one of those very tough decisions. Um, However, what I have noticed myself
Alright,
as
so
well, yeah, huge community pushback. It's actually, really working in this community's favor. They've managed to actually halt this gravel pit, which is really nice, especially because there is a massive backing from the EPA. The EPA has in fact been involved in this area for quite some time. Unfortunately, due to the amount of industrialization that originally occurred in the watershed, a massive amount of pollution has been stuck in this watershed for years and years and years. So the EPA has actually intervened in a lot of this and has removed so much of this pollution. There's been so much work done to the entire watershed itself, especially downstream in Monroe. However, now that we're closer up to the northwest side of the watershed, where there hasn't been as much pollution, there is just, a really big push of trying not to have this pollution present. There are already tons of gravel pits in the area as well, and they're right off, like I don't know if you're able to see, but the US 12 that runs right through there, there are about 3 or 4 gravel pits already within, a 5-mile radius of this. So it is one of those issues where it is incredibly hard for companies, they want that business, things like that. However, in terms of like sustainability, it's not a sustainable practice. It is not good for this area as well, especially since these gravel pits in our area, at least, once they're done, they fill in all the holes that they have made and turn it into lakefront property, which attracts a lot of people. However, this is not a sustainable business practice as long term. This just adds more pollution, more people, obviously, to pollute these lakes. Yes. So how does this fully connect to sustainability? Well, what they're trying to do here is protect the waterways. The waterways are a very, very important part of the livelihood of this community. Having access to clean and fresh water is an absolute must, obviously. We are definitely just pushing as much as we can to keep our waterways clean after so many years and EPA intervention as well, keeping these waterways clean. The area of concern that is the biggest right now in the River Raisin watershed is this photo in the bottom left. It is showing Monroe and Lake Erie. The biggest reason why this is an area of concern is there has no longer been a lot of pollution upstream. It is all downstream in the heavily populated area of Monroe. There's power plants there, there's different mills, and this is not helping to contribute to how clean River Raisin is, especially once these things get into the lake. It is diluted to the point where it is almost impossible to remediate in any way just because Lake Erie is a massive lake. So yeah, part of trying to protect these waterways is also preventing the pollution in the recharge areas, which is where I'm from. This area is known as Irish Hills. This is home to a ton of aquifers and just a massive groundwater reservoir that is once pollution gets in there, how do you get it out, right? It is incredibly hard to remediate those kinds of things. Nearby in the city of Tecumseh, actually, there was an occurrence of this with the Tecumseh Products plant. Actually, this plant unfortunately was putting a lot of their waste just back into the groundwater, and that ended up contaminating almost an entire town's, the east side of town's groundwater. And it is still to this day in some areas unusable. These people are not able to have wells like usual. They have to unfortunately use city water, which so Myrtle Beach, obviously everything's connected to city water. You rarely ever hear about anybody using a well, maybe out towards like Loris, that's more common. But where I'm from, almost everybody has groundwater. So trying to keep these areas clean is very, very important because most of these areas do not have access to city water. They do not have the plumbing, and it is, very hard to obtain that plumbing, especially today, especially in these more populated areas. How much time, how much money is that going to take to connect all these homes to a city water simply because the groundwater is so polluted by what is ever going on upstream and, towards the middle and Tecumseh. Yes, these things have been very big issues for quite some time. So preventing these areas from getting polluted is very important. Another thing is the protection of these public parks. A massive public park, for example, is Clark Lake. Clark Lake, would be affected by this pollution. It is in that same area. It is downstream of where this gravel pit would be. So industrialization in that area is pretty bad. However, the EPA has a river raisin watershed wide BUI, so beneficial use impairments. In the bottom right hand, you can see this. There are 9 total BUIs, and as of right now, the River Raisin watershed has had 5 of those removed, so there are only 4 left. So there is some progress being made, and all of those have happened in the 2010s. So as time moves forward, hopefully in the future there will be no BUIs to be seen. I'm really hoping that as this moves forward, we are going to see a lot of improvement in this area. It is a gorgeous area. The Irish Hills has a lot of historic significance, especially to this area, and it is just incredibly important to keep this community alive, to keep this community healthy, because a lot of these people, your groundwater gets polluted. How else are you going to get water? So this is just a topic that's been very near and dear to me, and I was excited to research it and actually learn how my research topic kind of didn't go as planned. I wanted to research how industrialization was affecting this. However, there is very little, and that kind of makes me proud that so much of it has been fought to prevent any more pollution being added. So that was a pleasant surprise when researching this. I'm glad to see that my hypothesis actually has not been proven true. These are my works cited, and thank you guys for watching.